Hello everyone and welcome. Today's deck chat features the B Tarot, a mass market deck published by Llewellyn in the spring of this year. I eagerly awaited this deck's release, so I'm delighted to share it with you here on the channel today. I was already familiar with the work of both the author and the artist, so I was fairly confident that I would not regret this purchase. The author of the deck is Christopher Hughes, and he's written multiple books, mostly focused upon Celtic deities and practices. He created both the Celtic Tarot and the Yuletide Tarot. He lives in Wales, and he serves as the chief of the Anglican Druid Order. He also keeps bees himself at his own home. So the books that I have of Christopher Hughes are the two that you see right here. I may have another, I'm not sure, and I have a couple of the decks as well. The Yuletide Tarot being one of them for sure, but these are the ones that I'm just sharing in the video today, so they may be familiar to you. If not, it may be something that you want to explore. The artist for the B Tarot is Nadia Turner, who lives in Melbourne, Australia, and she's known best for her illustrations of children's books, as well as tarot and oracle decks, but she also creates all manner of artwork. It looks like painting is her preferred medium. I noticed on social media that she recently opened a little shop in Australia where you can actually go in person and select featured works of art. She shares projects that she's working on for publishers in advance. So it was interesting to see the B Tarot artwork coming to life gradually before it was ever completed as a complete deck and published. The decks that I have of hers are those that you see right here in the shot. So Avalon Magic and the Mists of Avalon Oracle, they're both gorgeous. And the Forest Fae. I love these little teeny tiny decks, and I didn't even realize that one of the ones that I owned was hers. I knew she had done both of the Avalon, but it was only in prep for this video that I went looking through my collection and realized that she did the Forest Fae as well. I shared this one recently in my video about my fairy decks, so you're welcome to go take a look at that. It's a longer video because it shows quite a few decks, and this was one of them. And for Avalon Magic, we'll just show they're great pocket decks. Can definitely see similarity. Like this looks very much like one of the majors, I can tell you. Yeah, so she definitely has a recognizable style, and obviously I like it because I've ended up with multiple decks that belong to her. Let's see, take a peek at this one as well. All right, so those are the decks I have in my collection that Nadia Turner has been the artist for. So maybe if you like her artwork in the B Tarot and you don't already have these, you'll want to check those out as well. I know that she says that her major influences are mythology, fairy tales, witchcraft, and you can certainly see that in all of her artwork, not just the artwork for decks. So first impressions, I was extremely pleased when I opened this boxed set. I'm really starting to believe that Llewellyn has entered a kind of golden age of deck quality. That doesn't mean that I believe that they are perfect or, you know, the most luxurious, indulgent quality in every category. But for the price point and the artwork and everything that is included, especially in their boxed sets, They really haven't disappointed me in a very long time. The presentation itself is really nice. I know that some people find the boxes, when the box set, they find them to be too large, a little cumbersome. Maybe they're in a smaller space and they find that they could fit more on their shelves if it wasn't so large. But I'm a fan. Really all the other possibilities for boxes or just them by themselves in bags and things like that, they're at way more risk of being jumbled around, of being dinged up. If you travel, if you take your cards with you places, this is really like the sturdiest, safest way to take some boxes. So I read tarot professionally, particularly seasonally. There is kind of a season for me at festivals and fairs and things like that, special events. So these boxes travel so nicely. They stack so nicely in the cart. Everything's all nice and contained. Even if it starts like suddenly raining or sprinkling while I'm, tearing down or setting up, things like that, they're pretty well protected. So I'm a fan of these kind of decks. So you won't hear any complaints from me. As far as I'm concerned, Llewellyn can keep them coming. This is also, this deck really is like a perfect example of the way the publisher has been striking a good balance between the quality of the box and the book and the cards, meaning like the cardstock. In fact, I was so smitten with this deck when it arrived that I had to make a bee-inspired tarot cloth for it. So maybe before we actually explore that and make a big mess on my cloth, I'll show it to you. So you can see these are little tiny, the fabric I got just has little tiny embroidered bees all over it, just yellow and black. And it's double-sided. So I don't know if it's going to be picked up by the camera, but the back is a black cotton that has gold sparkles throughout. And they are gold. It seems like in the camera they might look a little silvery, but in person they look very golden, which I thought goes with it better. So you really get like two decks in one. I wanted just like a nice place to put it, and I felt pretty certain I was going to be using the deck for readings, so I wanted a nice backdrop. I did have enough fabric left over to make a few extra. So if you are interested in getting a reversible tarot cloth like this one, you can check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the shop link in the description below this video. You can also purchase a reading from me there as well. Sometimes I will have more than others. I'm really just getting it going. I opened it technically a long time ago, but did nothing with it. It was just like a back burner project. So it's starting to come to life now. And the current cloths that I have available, tarot and altar cloths, are the first that I've ever placed in the shop and put up for sale. So you're welcome to check those out. When they're gone, they're gone. So there's just a few. I think there's 3 of the bees currently that are available. All right, so let's just take a closer look at the deck. When we're looking at the box itself, it's sturdy. It's got the magnetic side closure. I know that because it's a mass market and a lot of people are excited about this, there are no doubt multiple videos featuring the deck. So I won't belabor that point too much, but I will say that I used to think that the ribbon that they include to assist with lifting the cards out of the box was kind of superfluous. I just thought, oh, it just looks kind of fancy. It makes you feel like you have a more, indulgent kind of experience, with your kit, but it's not really needed. And then last year I had a deck that it didn't have the ribbon, and because it was rather glossy, I think just being transferred through temperature changes, particularly humid weather, it was sticking. And by me trying to just use my finger to lift the cards out of the bottom, they had stuck a bit, and it actually damaged the card. There was like color print transfer off the card. I was
so disappointed because I realized then at that moment, like, every deck I think might need a ribbon. Every box that comes like this might need a ribbon because it just prevents that from happening, at least in my experience. Any deck with a ribbon, things haven't been crammed and stuck so much, like the whole face was really stuck to it, that you have to risk damaging your card to get it out. So I think that's quite nice. The graphic design itself, when you look at it, is just charming. And you'll notice this repeated motif, the hexagon shape that, you know, echoes the shapes of the cells in the hive itself, right? You can see it over and over again. There's just like a lot of thought that goes into it. So it even looks nice on a shelf, I think. The book itself is quite large. It's full color. I mean full color, not just white pages with a tiny color card, which we're lucky when we get those often. But this is just lovely. You can see all the little details. And it's so nice to be able to look as you're getting to know the cards and reading about their meaning. It's really nice to be able to get a look at the detail on an even larger scale than you'll be using with the deck itself. I appreciate it. The older I get, the less clear my eyesight is, the stronger my glasses will continue to need to be. So things like this are super helpful. And you can just see how large and generous and clear and clean the prints are. Really nice. As far as the writing itself goes, it is concise. Like, they're not really long entries, but if you think about, you know, how large the page is, how large the print is, that's pretty meaty. It's generous, I think, and it's just enough, and it gets you started. It also rather whets your appetite. So there are many things in here that pique your interest that you can then go and pursue and learn more about, because there are a lot of layers to the bee references and the kind of symbolism and the meanings that are being emphasized by the author. So it's really just a pleasure to read. The entries themselves I find to be often story-like, some more than others. If I come across an example of one of those, I'll share it. But the voice, also the author's voice, is easy reading, pleasant, engaging, all of those things. So do yourself a favor. I know that many of us will set the book aside intending to read it later, or maybe never intending to read it later if we don't like the look of it or we just don't have the time. But this is not one of those to forget about and to collect dust. If you're looking for just the title itself, I don't know if it'll ever be sold separately from the kit. It is called Into the Hive. So if we're looking at just like the cards themselves overall, you know, some of the standout qualities would be that they are borderless, that they're typical tarot size, they are very flexible, kind of bouncy really, they're lightweight. Some might call it thin, but it is not thin in a way that it's a problem. Not at all. That keeps them easy to manage and easy to handle. So there's a texture to them. Llewellyn is calling it, I think, a premium linen finish. So I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up. I think it's more obvious in darker ones, but let's see if you can see that there's a hint of the linen line. You can feel it. And it gives the appearance and a slight texture of almost like a canvas type quality. Not overly so, but just enough that you get some friction and you get some grip, so that when you're like me and you have them all piled up, maybe outdoors at a festival, they don't just keep sliding and falling off of each other on your table, because that happens to me with some of my decks that are too slick and too smooth, especially if they're too narrow and lightweight. So these stay where I want them to stay typically, and that's appreciated. Are they good for like riffle shuffling? I think they are. I'm not a riffle shuffler. My hands are very small, and I increasingly, as I get older, I don't have the strength and dexterity that I used to. Not that I ever had a whole lot. It's kind of always been an issue. But because of that, I don't riffle shuffle. And someone told me a long time ago that it damages the cards and maybe takes years off their life. And I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that sort of cemented it for me that why was I going to force myself to do something uncomfortable for me when it might not even be good for the cards. So I don't shuffle in that way. I'm very easy and gentle on my decks. Even ones I've had a long time look pretty good. So it seems to be working out. But I believe that if you're someone who does like to riffle shuffle, these would be great to do that with because of the flexibility and the weight. There is a gloss. I think the camera's picking that up. But it's not a super high gloss. Just enough that you know that they're protected. That's the lamination, I guess. So we've got the majors separated out now. Okay, so as we start to look through the minors, let's talk about the color palette a little bit. It's really quite warm. Overall, it emphasizes a lot of brown and yellow, and I think one of the reasons is it's probably intended to be reminiscent of the many beautiful colors and shades of honey, as well as just to have that grounding, earthy kind of effect, because I would consider this somewhat of an environmental deck as well, considering its themes and the subject matter. Originally, when I ordered the deck, I thought, perfect, it's coming out just in time for summer. This is going to be a summer deck for sure. And it definitely is a perfect summer deck. But I did think that I might be limited to only using it in the summer based on just the themes and the imagery. I do work rather seasonally with my decks, so I think of them that way. Like, what would I use in the spring? What decks am I going to work with this summer? And some are just more appropriate for that than others. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that many of the cards really give late summer, early fall, late fall vibes. The coziness, the many indoor scenes, many cards that are not featuring, flowers in bloom. Of course, there's plenty of that, but there are many that don't. And so this deck really, I foresee myself using it in the summer and continuing to use it into the fall. Taking summer's lessons in imagery with me, taking it indoors, and preparing for winter with the compositions that are in the deck. They just really lend themselves really well to that. So when you're thinking about things that are different about this deck, a major change to the minor arcana would be one of the suits is called jars instead of cups, but it's, water-like, and emotional, interpersonal themes still remain. The whole deck is Rider-Waite-Smith based, and that's pretty obvious, but the changes that have been made are meaningful, they're interesting, they add another layer of understanding. So
it's really perfect for someone who works a lot with Rider-Waite-Smith, and they are looking for they like the reliability and the familiarity of Rider-Waite, but they didn't want to clone. They are interested in, some other option that gives some change and spices things up a little bit, but not too much. And this is that kind of deck. So now we're looking at Pentacles, and you see what I mean? Of course, the suit of Pentacles is traditionally kind of associated with the season of winter, but even in all of the other suits, we saw cards that, didn't scream summer necessarily. It's one of my favorite cards for sure. Look at the Seven of Pentacles. Like, look at her little stand, her little honeybee product stand. All the little teeny tiny details, and like how her hat is reminiscent of the skeps, like those traditional, and so are her baskets that remind you of some of those woven bee boxes or bee houses that they call skeps. One of the things I really enjoy about the deck is that it seems to balance. I mean, balance is really one of its themes, I think, but it manages to balance a lot of things, one of which being its place in time. So when you're looking at it, sometimes people look timeless, and you imagine, I don't know, we could be certainly from another century here, right? And you see that especially with the court cards, right? With the clothing, the robes and things like that. Is it medieval? Is it even predating that? But at the same time, you will see cards that are much more modern. And it doesn't seem to take you out of the experience. It's not jarring. It doesn't strike me as inconsistent. So we have keepers of all kinds, but sometimes they just look like us now. And then we are also seeing figures that are certainly from another world or another time or another place. And the balance of that's nice, and that provides you some variety. Like, one of the things that makes like a good work of art, right, is that balance between unity and variety. It has to seem unified in a lot of ways so that it's not just like this random mess that isn't cohesive. But if it's overly unified, if it's too harsh of a unity, it's boring and it's predictable and all of those things. So it's really nice to see the differentiation that's going on, I guess, is what I'm saying. And on that note, you could address the diversity as well. There are certainly many examples of diversity in this deck, and it's never distracting. It never feels like tokenism to me. I always look for that. It doesn't feel forced or unnatural. It's there. I've seen different bodies, different ages, things like that. But it's not the focus. It doesn't take away, or it's not done at the expense of a meaningful storyline and meaningful symbolism, all of that. Hopefully that makes sense. It's one of those things where I just know how I feel about it when I dig into a deck, and it's not always easy to predict before you get a look at all the cards, which is one of the advantages of people sharing videos like this, where they're looking at them and giving other people a chance to look at them to decide if it's a deck that appeals. So taking like a second glance at the major arcana, it's just nice to note that our Fool's journey has become the beekeeper's journey, which I found delightful. I have beekeepers in my family. I have an uncle who's been keeping bees for years. He actually lives in Amish country. He's not Amish proper, but he certainly has embraced like the local way of life in a lot of ways. And so he keeps bees according to folkloric and anecdotal practices that have been shared with him by his neighbors and in his community, which is really interesting. And then just this year, my father started to keep bees. And he went about it in a completely different way, which was interesting. So he took a course, a local community course, in which they go like several times to get all of the latest research and information on the plight of the bees, things that are risky for them, you know, the pros and cons of the different kinds of bee boxes and how to get started and how to avoid certain risks and things like that. So he went at it that way. And he has, even though he has such a new colony, which I will try to share a photo. He sent it to me just the other day when we text and stuff or talk. I always ask about the bees. How are his bees doing? And they're thriving. They're doing really well. So he sent me a picture. And so like the uncle I told you about, he went with the wooden boxes and he has multiples. And he had his own challenges and highs and lows with his experience. And then my father went the other route and he has like a more modern, like the plastic boxes. And that's the picture that I will share in this video. I'll try to share it right here. If I'm slick, I can insert it at the right time. So hopefully it's being shared now. Anyway, as I was going through the beekeeper's journey and thinking of it, not just as the typical fool's journey, right? But we're looking at it as a beekeeper's journey. It reminded me of the adventure, you know, and the learning, all this great old knowledge, all of this symbolism, all of the, both the folklore and the research and all of these things that are available now to beekeepers, and they wade through it, right? And they decide, you know, which lessons they take and keep and apply from all these different wisdom sources, and which ones they don't, that they leave aside. And just in my own family, I have two beekeepers who went a distinctly different way with two different approaches. So they're having very unique experiences with the process, but both are quite smitten and impressed with bees. They already, my dad has interesting stories. So this reminds me, he told me that he got his first sting, and he actually got two at the same moment, the same time, just last week. And he said that the reason that he got the sting, and he had been going out very regularly and checking on the bees. He keeps a log, right, of their activity and things he's supposed to check on and notice and observe and all of this. He's getting to know them as much as they're getting to know him. And on that day, he took it for granted, the process, and he was hurried. He was rushed and he was careless. He also didn't wear any protection, which people don't always, depending on what they're doing with the bees. But and he was taught a lesson by coming at it really in the wrong frame of mind. And I thought that was really a beautiful lesson. And as I was working my way through this deck, particularly the majors, I couldn't help but think of him and his experiences, because he's on his own fool's journey for sure right now. So there's
a lot going on with the deck. You really just get tip of the iceberg in the book, but it's planting lots of seeds, and there are lots of rabbit holes that you can follow through with. I certainly was on a couple of those little rabbit hole paths already before the deck arrived, and this really just inspired me to check out more. One example would be the Melissa, and the pronunciation, depending on whether you're going to the Greek, and is it the ancient Greek or the modern Greek, or are you just going to use your westernized modern, pronunciation like American. I'm not sure which one would be considered correct. I'm not sure if there is a correct pronunciation, but however you want to pronounce it, just learning about the bee priestesses, and that there have been bee priestesses or priests, but typically priestesses in most practices that are documented, that are going back to the ancient world, and bee shamans and things like that have existed for centuries, and that you can see people having these relationships with the bees as far back as 8,000-year-old prehistoric like cave art. It's really fascinating stuff. I'm equally fascinated by the more modern folklore, and I don't mean modern as in contemporary to us now, but I don't know, maybe since the 17 or 1800s and 1900s, and things that are coming down to people from their great-great-grandparents and things like that. So I can think of numerous examples, but this would be a really long video, and it's not as focused on the deck. But when I'm thinking about these layers, I'm really thinking of it in terms of themes, and just that interconnectedness between the bees and humanity. It comes through loud and clear, which is one of the reasons that I would say it seems like, a conservationist deck or an environmentalist's deck, because we all know that our population of bees, I think we've lost them by half or more. I think is it 2015? 2015, we were at like half of what we had been before, and 1 out of every 3 bites of food that a human takes currently is directly the result of bees and bee activity. So they are absolutely essential to our survival, other creatures' survival. It's just not something to be taken lightly. And without being overly alarmist or anything like that, just this genuine love and cherishing, and I don't know, just raising the bees up and making them the whole subject of a deck like this, and the subject of such beautiful and noble art and attention is a wonderful thing. It gives them a bit of a platform and a bit of a voice in a different way. Sure, you see articles and things like that when the news decides to publish any, or when anyone wants to cover it, but this is yet another way to draw attention, and not in an empty, superficial manner. It's my understanding, based on an interview that I saw with Christopher Hughes, the author, that Llewellyn is donating a portion of the profits of this deck to numerous bee charities around the world, which I thought was really interesting. I don't have any more specific information than that about it, but I do just love the idea, and I plan to check it out and see which ones. And then silly me, I hadn't even realized that there are bee charities. I mean, there's a charity for everything, and you do need to be careful in assessing charities. A lot of times, everyone's getting a fat paycheck. The admins of the charity, and a very small percentage is really going to do much of anything. However, I have no doubt that there are probably some really passionate charities out there doing some good work, and so I intend to check it out and find one that might be worth supporting. You might be inspired to do a similar thing. Another theme that emerges is the life cycle of the bees, how it really mirrors our own life cycle, and then the emphasis of the cycles of the seasons and things like that. I like the approach of archetypes for both bees, their roles and their jobs, and humans as well. We're used to seeing the archetypes and working with them in the tarot, but then to see them unique to the bees or those that work with the bees, people that have been associated with the bees historically, mythologically, all that stuff. So then that's another layer, right, is the mythological and the cultural significance of bees throughout time. And the last one that I thought of was, you kind of get the impression that these bees, of course they're integral, but you start to see them as like a connector, like a bridge between humanity and the natural world. You also see that between life and death, not just because we rely on them to live, but historically, mythologically as well. They had a lot of associations with death in various cultures, particularly ancient ones. Also, there's this theme of them being, I guess, messengers of hidden knowledge, of that which is hidden, which is so perfect for a tarot deck, right? It's supposed to be illuminating things for you. You have questions and it shines a light, and that which was hidden is now brought out better for you to see and to understand. So I hope that makes sense. Those are my impressions of the deck. I haven't had much opportunity to actually work with it. I haven't done any readings for anyone else. And I think I'm going to wrap up today's chat with a little deck interview, which would be nice. But I'm going to put it on pause and really mix this deck up because, it's so harshly segmented. It'll take me a while to separate it all out before I start shuffling so that I know it's blended. And then we'll do a little interview and we'll talk about some perfect pairings. There are a lot of decks that look really nice with this, both Oracle and Tarot, if you like to work in multiples like I do. So let me just shuffle real quick. I'm going to pause and then I'll come right back. Okay, I'm back. I made sure that the Bee Tarot is really well shuffled. If you don't riffle shuffle, it's really hard to make sure that things aren't still in clumps when you first get them, like 6 of Swords, 7 of Swords, 8 of Swords all together, which is no good. So I have a whole little method that I always go through with a new deck. And so I just did that because they were so separated and overly organized. And so now we're going to look at some pairings that work nicely with the tarot deck. You don't have to pair your tarot deck with anything else. It's plenty. It's a total package. However, a lot of people read that way, and I do, certainly. Really, why would you pair one tarot deck with, let's say, another tarot deck? I'll look at the tarot decks that I pulled today first. And the first one up is the Tarot of the Witch's Garden by Sasha Graham and Natasha Ilnichik. I am so sorry. That's terrible. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to improve on that. Anyway, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous deck, and it looks beautiful with this one. A reason that you might want to pair 2 tarot decks, one of the things I do is when I'm doing readings, let's say at a festival or a special event, I kind of get things going and do like a warm-up with just the majors. So if we just pull the majors out. So if you have one deck that you're only using the majors on, and what I do is I show people how to get their tarot birth card, right? So their special card. And so all I need are the majors, but you still want them to look nice. because you're going to lay that out, and then you want it to kind of be cohesive and look pretty as you continue on, right, with the reading. So I'll put another one out. And so the first step that I take is to lay out, you know, that major. And you don't want to pull it from the same deck, at least I don't, that you're working with, because now for the whole rest of your regular reading, you know, you have an incomplete deck because you've pulled a card out of it, unless you have duplicates or something like that. So you can see how very pretty the Tarot of the Witch's Garden is, just this row here. And then the next two rows, or I guess I should say columns, right, are the Bee Tarot, and they look so good together, right? Really nice. They have that soft artwork, some similar colors and palettes, same size, also exact same cardstock and finish. So this is kind of seamless, right? And we can put some others next to it just so you can see. And maybe I'll put some new Bee Tarot cards out. Oh, I just realized you probably can't see the bottom row. You cannot. Bummer. All right, we'll just raise it up this way. So you just see how nice they look together. Even the darker ones, don't they look lovely? And so like the greens are carried forward, but then this one, you know, it's got the emphasis on the yellow, and here you have more of the lavenders and pinks. It's just beautiful together. So yeah, that's probably a #1 pick if you're looking for another tarot deck to read. Yeah. So we'll keep some of these guys out, I guess. And I think maybe we're gonna wanna just have them up that way. And we'll put this one away. The next tarot deck that I thought would work really nicely is the Herbcrafter's Tarot. All right, so here you have the Herbcrafter's Tarot, and it's written by Letitia Guthrie. The artwork is by Joanna Powell Colbert. And the backs are, whoops, we've still got some left over from our witch's garden. Just the one. Make sure it gets in the right place. Okay, so if we have Bee Tarot up top, you can see that the backs are different, but color scheme is compatible. And then if you just want to see how it looks with it. Okay, so another reason you might use a second tarot deck, and you still want it to look nice and cohesive, is if you give your querents, you know, at an event or in private or professionally, informally, whatever it is, if you give them a choice. I don't love the white frame when we have a borderless here, but it's not terrible. And if we just focus on the art itself, it's compatible. It's not the same, but I do think that it's compatible. So let's get some new characters in here. And then let's put some more out. It's the emphasis, of course, on, you know, the plants, nature. The colors are working well together, I think. Like that looks nice together. It might be nice to then add the meaning of the plants, which isn't typical with your typical tarot deck, right? To have that included. But if you're giving a choice, the way I offer choice to querents is like this. So I will have 2 decks. And so when they come to my table or my booth or whatever, one of the first things they get to do is choose their deck, right? And I may not have them choose the Oracle deck, because I also usually wrap things up with an Oracle card or two, but I'll have them choose the tarot deck that I'm going to use for the reading. And that gives me some buy-in. It kind of gives us something to talk about, and then I usually go straight from that to using the deck that they chose to find their tarot birth card, and then we move on with the regular reading. So I thought this one was nice, especially thematically, it's nice. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, the last tarot deck that I found that I thought paired nicely with the Bee Tarot is the Pastoral Tarot. So it's by Lynn Araujo, and it's illustrated by Lisa Hunt. And it's gorgeous. I think it's going to end up featured in another video here that I'll be making very, very soon. So it's on my to-do list is to do just the summer decks I'm working with this summer. And it certainly makes the list. So I just want to share how it looks nice with the Bee Tarot. So this one is interesting because it's presented in a landscape format. So it's a horizontal deck. So it makes it really interesting. Let's see if we put these here, that you can have one on like above the other. So you can see how the backs look good together like that, right? So a lot of these colors here in the background of the Bee Tarot are picked up like in the colors of the butterfly and some of the other wooden or golden elements. It's subtle, but it's there. They're cohesive. They look nice. And then if we start to flip them, right? So there you can see like how they might look. You can put one above the other. You can put them next to each other. Let's see how that looks. I kind of like one above. It's the advantage of the landscape option there. So we got like the Ace of Pentacles, Three of Pentacles. So I'm not just showing you the majors up there because I didn't have them sorted out, I don't think. Did I? Maybe they're here. Not in any particular order. But yeah, so if you were going on with, say, a reading, so if your card, your birth card was the Emperor, at least that's how I use them. And then you got your regular reading going on. You can see how they look nice together. Do some more. There's the Fool. So yeah, you get the idea, I think. Moon. So I'll be looking at that deck more closely in my summer decks video, but I thought that it works nicely if you wanted to be able to pair a tarot deck with this one. So now what we're going to do is just move on, because more commonly people will pair an oracle deck with their tarot deck. So we'll look at some oracle decks that I pulled that look nice with the Bee Tarot. Okay, so I pulled a top 3. I don't know if I'll be able to cut it off there. I might do a top 4, but I definitely have a top 3 oracle decks that look really nice. And they seem to work well with the Bee Tarot. So the first one is Green Witch Oracle, and that's by Sherilyn Darcy. And actually the second one I'll show you is also a Sherilyn Darcy deck. So I don't know, something about her art style and color palette just looks really nice with this deck. So there's the backs. So let's take a look at how the oracle cards look with some of the Bee Tarot cards. So the emphasis, obviously, on the plant life. I like the keywords. They're not overly distracting or busy. I like that they have a larger size to them and a less busy composition on each card. So obviously, bees love flowers. It makes sense to have a floral deck, which will explain the next deck that I chose. I wonder if you can guess what it will be. Since I gave you that hint, we'll show a couple more, but you can see how they're quite lovely and they look nice. I feel like we'll mix these up some more so I don't keep showing you the same Bee Tarot cards over and over again. It's still happening. Yep. Maybe I've just looked at this deck too much today. And it's okay, there's kind of a new one. All right, so you get the idea. I think that one works pretty nicely. And the messages work particularly well. I tested out a couple of those earlier just to see, you know, what the voice would be or what the tone would be. All right, so you've had enough time. Were you able to guess the next Sherilyn Darcy deck that's floral? Let's get some new ones of these up. I don't know. I was trying to make sure it was like kind of a different image. All right, it is the Oracle of the Roses. And this thing is just gorgeous. There's the backs. Looks like subtle rose wallpaper. Love the shiny gilded sides. And let's just see. More for the theme and the message than its appearance, but because it has that antiqued, you know, earthy toned, tea stained kind of parchmenty paper background, it goes well with all of the browns and the creams and the earth tones that you find in this deck. And we get quite a bit of yellows making an appearance in this deck as well. And when that happens, it also looks quite nice. So yeah, you get the idea. All right. Yeah, they look pretty. I guess we'll change this one more time. Trying to cover my camera stand, so it puts my cloth on an angle and then it makes a little hill, and I'm fighting the sliding cards this whole video. Probably wasn't the best choice. So yeah, I think it works. I think it's doable, and the messages are lovely. It's certainly a great summer combo to include. Okay, so the third of my top 3 oracles that I think work best with the Bee Tarot is Goddess Dream Oracle by Wendy Andrew. And it's the softness of the art style. It's the palette, certainly. It's the thematic material as well, you know, heavily influenced by nature. So there's the backs, and they work nice with the backs of this tarot deck. And then if you just want to see how things look. Whoops, that one wanted to be seen, I guess. Let's switch up some of these. I think they complement each other nicely. I'll show a couple more. I really like this deck. Yeah, so that's the Goddess Dream Oracle, and it looks so nice with the Bee Tarot. Now,
You know, I just can't stop. Honorable mentions. Maybe I won't get them out, and I will just tell you that they are honorable mentions. So the Secret Oracle of the Green Witch works. It definitely works. And so does the Enchanted Spell Oracle. Looks nice and works. They're kind of quirky. The Anatomy of a Witch Oracle would probably be my favorite of the honorable mentions as far as how it looks. And it's nice that if these are busier, more detailed scenes, that this is less so, right? So you can see how those might look, how they might look. I mean, we've got those earthy tea stain, parchment paper kind of background. Yeah, so the Secret Oracle of the Green Witch is by Cecilia Latari, and the illustrator is Betty Greco. The Enchanted Spell Oracle is by Priestess Moon, and Anatomy of a Witch Oracle is by Laura Tempest Zakroff. So our last step here is to do a little deck interview. I like to do that with a new deck, or sometimes a deck that I haven't worked with in a long time or didn't work with much, and I feel like I really just don't know it. And that'll be a nice way for us to hear the author's voice, because when I do deck interviews, I don't rely as much on my own intuition, and instead I like to hear what the book that is the companion to the deck, what it says about the card. That helps me get to know the book as well. And that way you'll get to hear the author's voice and see it applied to a handful of cards. So let me just clean up my mess here, and then we'll lay out a very short deck interview spread. Okay, I've cleared some space here on the cloth so that we can do a quick little interview with the B Tarot. And typically I'll ask multiple questions, up to 5, and I will share the image of those questions that I ask my new decks or decks I haven't worked with in a long time. And so hopefully I'm sharing them right about now, if editing was cooperating with me after I start reworking my footage. So the first question, and that's the one we're going to ask the deck today, is just please tell me about yourself. And then the subsequent questions, which you should be seeing hopefully on the graphic that I made, is what is your core energy? What are your strengths? What are your limitations? And what can I learn from working with you? So you can always do any version of these. I didn't invent them. I've collected them over the years from various deck interview readings that I've seen demonstrated, or I've read or seen graphics of. So you can also just do a search if you don't like those, or you're looking for something else, or get really creative and make up your own. So our question that we're asking, I'm going to consult the book for, because I want to familiarize myself more with the book, start applying it, and hear what the book says in its own voice, right? And the deck's own voice, I guess I should say. So our first question is the only one that we pulled a card for, and that is, please tell me about yourself. And the card that we pulled is Queen of Pentacles. So I know what my own associations are with the Queens and with the Suit of Pentacles, and many of those will still apply because this is a Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's time to see what the deck has to say. So let me find the Suit of Pentacles. And okay, got it. And we may not read the whole thing. I'm trying to end the video without going much longer. So let's see what we can get from it. There's a nice close-up image, which is good. And you have your buzzwords that you can look at, which are nurturing and motherly and supportive. You picture, just the most, ideal mom to be running your household.
That's how I always think of the Queen of Pentacles, and it sounds like this is the same. So now when we read in the book, I know that the voice is often personifying, imagining, especially court cards, applying to a person. So we're just going to apply those traits, character traits, to the deck herself, right? So it says, in this card, we see a queen bee moving slowly over an image of the bee goddess that was discovered in Chimeros on the Mediterranean island of Rhodes. Dating from the 7th century BCE, this is an early example of bee veneration in ancient cultures. This personality type represents the quintessential mother, I should say symbol of the mother. This is a nurturing individual of any gender who will ensure the safety and security of those that they love. They may also spend a lot of time worrying about the well-being of others, and whilst generous, kind, and supportive, they can fall into the mindset of mother knows best and may be unwilling to let go of the apron strings. But generally, this is an individual who thrives on making others feel at home. If you visit them, they will feed you and lavish you with hospitality. They make excellent friends and will always provide you with a space in which you feel important, loved, and heard. They love to surround themselves with things that make them feel cozy and comfortable. A person with this trait will have a well-loved home, squishy sofas, and a plethora of cushions and soft textiles. They adore their home comforts and are not one for minimalism. The queen has been around the block a few times. She knows what she wants in life and encourages others to seek the same surety in their own lives. She is confident, secure in herself and her finances, and unafraid to show the world how she feels. If you ever need a hug, this is the person who will give you the best hug possible. She is the watery aspect of earth, so think of gentle streams, ponds, and small lakes. They are filled with life and provide sustenance to their surroundings. So that's lovely. It does go on, of course, like they all do, to talk about upright and reverse, but we're not considering it that way. So the voice of the deck clearly telling me that this is a deck that is nurturing. It is strong and confident, and it has, well-being. The querents are mine in this case because it's my deck. My well-being always, in the forefront of the mind. It's a deck to be trusted. It's a deck you can go into and work with when you need a hug, right? So we can read more into some of those other things, and certainly the great bee mother symbolism and all of that. But I think that's a good place, to end the video today. So we've reached the end of our chat about the beautiful bee tarot. If you stuck around until the end, I do thank you kindly. I would love to hear your thoughts about the deck. If you have some ideas for possible pairings with it and other decks, I'd love to see those in the comments below. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like the video, consider subscribing to the channel. These simple things, they really do keep the channel alive, and they keep it visible on the platform. You're always hearing about the algorithm, and it gets increasingly challenging to even do all the right things so that it will put your video forth in front of someone who would really like to see it. So those are little things that you can do to be supportive. I've just created a Facebook page and Instagram account with the same name as the channel, right? The Soul Sybil. So you can find me there if that's your kind of thing. Until next time, take care.